Brynn laughed at her phone like it had just told her a secret about me. Not a big laugh, not even a happy one. Just that quick, breathy little exhale people do when they're trying not to look guilty in their own kitchen. Then she saw me in the doorway, and her thumb moved, one smooth swipe, like wiping a fingerprint off glass. "Hey," she said, bright and weightless. "You're home early." Early. Like I was a package she didn't expect to arrive yet. I stepped inside and let the door click shut behind me. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and something sweet. Vanilla candle, probably. Brynn loved candles the way some people loved religion. A small ritual to make everything feel pure, even when it wasn't. "Crew wrapped up," I said. "Drywall delivery got bumped. The universe has spoken." She nodded like she cared, but her eyes were still half in her phone. The screen went dark. Her smile stayed on, fixed in place, like it had been stapled there. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. For the last month, Brynn had been living in that half state, present enough to answer, gone enough to make you feel like you were talking to a cashier who'd already clocked out. She'd started saying words like boundaries and space, the way people say, amen. Every conversation ended with a soft little sigh, like I was exhausting her by existing, and I'd been telling myself it was stress. Clinic launch stress, vendor calls, brand partners, the big grand opening. Brynn was project managing, which in Brynn language meant she got to wear sleek black outfits and talk fast and act like she was saving lives instead of scheduling catering and fighting over font choices. It wasn't that I didn't respect her work. I did. I'd been proud of her when she got pulled into the launch team. I'd been proud enough to swallow how small it made me feel sometimes. Me with drywall dust in my hair, her with polished nails and a calendar full of strategy. But pride has a shelf life when your fiancé stops looking you in the eyes. "You eat?" she asked. "Nope. I was saving my appetite for emotional neglect." She blinked, then gave me a quick laugh that didn't reach her face. "You're in a mood." "I'm in my own house feels like a hotel lobby mood," I said, and kept it light, because that's what you do when you're trying not to sound like the guy in a movie who's about to get framed for something. Brynn turned, opened the fridge, and stared into it like the answers were on the back wall. Her hair was pulled up, a little messier than usual, the kind of messy that looked practiced. "I'm just tired," she said. "It's been a day. Every day is a day lately." That made her shoulders tighten, just a fraction, but I noticed fractions. My life ran on them. A quarter-inch off on a measurement, and a door doesn't close right. A half-second pause, and a person doesn't mean what they're saying. She shut the fridge and faced me, leaning her hip against the counter like we were doing a scene. "Cal, can we not do this right now?" We. Like we were both equally at fault for the air in the room being wrong. "Sure," I said. "We cannot do it. We've been not doing it for weeks. We're experts." Her jaw flexed. She reached for her water bottle, unscrewed the cap too hard. "I don't have the bandwidth for a fight." "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm talking." She lifted the bottle to her lips and drank. Her eyes stayed on the window above the sink, where the glass was already turning black with early winter. Outside, the wind pushed dry leaves across the patio like it was cleaning up after a party. "I'm going to shower," she said and turned away. The way she said it made it sound like an escape hatch. "Okay," I replied, calm. Too calm. I heard it myself. The calm you hear on documentaries right before the narrator says, he didn't know it yet, but this was the last normal night of his life. Brynn walked past me, phone in hand, and I caught a whiff of her perfume as she brushed my shoulder. Not the one she usually wore. This one was sharper, colder, like expensive soap. She paused on the stairs and looked back. "By the way, My mom might stop by tomorrow. Cool, I said. Does she need a reservation? Brynn's mouth twitched. Don't. Then she went up. I stood there in the kitchen, listening to her footsteps fade, and tried to name what I was feeling. Jealousy was too small. Fear was too dramatic. It was something in between, like when you notice a hairline crack in your foundation and you don't know yet if it's cosmetic or if the whole damn house is slowly leaning into the earth. I cleaned up the mail on the counter because doing something with your hands keeps you from doing something stupid with your mouth. A grocery flyer, a letter from the power company, a glossy postcard advertising condos downtown, luxury living in the heart of revival. They've been promising revival here since the mill shut down. The only thing that ever revived was rent. My keys clinked when I set them down. I noticed Brynn's purse on the chair by the table, half open like it had been dumped in a hurry. I didn't touch it at first. I'm not that guy. I don't dig through pockets like a raccoon. But then I saw something pale inside the purse that didn't belong with the usual chaos. Lipstick, gum, receipts from places I didn't recognize. A stiff paper sleeve, the kind hotels use for key cards. I told myself it was for a conference, a vendor meeting. Some totally innocent thing that happened in a world where people didn't lie like it was cardio. Still, my body moved before my brain could vote. I pulled the sleeve out with 2 fingers. It was white, thick stock, and it smelled faintly of chlorine, like a pool. Grand view. Hotel valet parking included room 1217. That's all it said. No date, no name. Just a room number that felt like a punchline written specifically for me. I stared at it until the letters stopped being letters and became shapes. My heart wasn't racing. That was the strange part. It was slow and heavy, like a machine starting up. I put the sleeve back exactly where I found it. I didn't crumple it. I didn't confront her. I didn't do anything cinematic, because real life isn't cinematic at first. Real life is quiet. Real life is you standing in your kitchen while a shower runs upstairs, trying to convince yourself that you're overreacting. Then, Brynn's phone, left on the counter by accident, lit up like it had been waiting for me. Incoming call, G. Voss, sponsor. And under it, in smaller text, last call, 12:17 a.m. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't touch it. I didn't even breathe until the screen went dark again, like it had blinked and decided I wasn't worth explaining things to. The shower upstairs shut off. Pipes groaned. Water knocked once inside the walls and went still. I slid Brynn's phone back to where it had been, face down, angled just enough that it looked untouched. Years of running job sites teaches you how to leave a place exactly the way you found it. No footprints, no smudges, no story for anyone to tell later. That was the first night I stopped asking questions out loud. Instead, I started listening. Brynn came downstairs wrapped in a towel, hair damp, face pink from the steam. She looked younger like that, softer. It annoyed me how easily my brain wanted to forgive her when she looked like the girl I'd met 4 years ago at a friend's barbecue, laughing too loud, stealing beer from my cooler like it was flirting. "You look pale," she said. "You okay?" "Just tired," I replied. I wondered when that phrase had become code for "I'm lying, but I hope you won't push." She leaned in and kissed my cheek, not my mouth. Her lips barely touched skin, like a test tap. I smiled back. It felt like pulling a muscle in my face. That night, she fell asleep fast, turned away from me, phone charging on her side of the bed. I stared at the ceiling fan cutting slow circles in the dark and made a list in my head. Not of accusations, of facts. Fact 1. People who are happy don't hide their phones like they're carrying state secrets. Fact 2. No one needs a hotel room to plan a clinic launch. Fact 3. When someone starts planting words like temper and space, they're usually laying tracks for a train you haven't seen yet. The next morning, Brynn left early, earlier than usual. She kissed my cheek again, already half gone, and said, Big day. I waited 5 minutes after her car pulled out before I moved. Our townhouse had come with a doorbell camera when we rented it. Cheap model. Motion alerts. Nothing fancy. I'd mostly used it to see when packages arrived or when the neighbor's kid tried to cut across our porch. I opened the app on my phone and scrolled back. Last night. 12:42 a.m. Motion detected. I tapped it. The clip loaded slowly, buffering just long enough for my stomach to tighten. Then the grainy black and white image sharpened, and Brynn appeared on the screen, stepping into the frame like she didn't care who saw her. She wasn't alone. The man with her was taller than me by a couple inches, wearing a dark coat with the collar turned up. He moved like he knew where he was going, not hesitant, not sneaking. They stopped right under the camera. I couldn't hear them. The doorbell cam didn't record audio, but I didn't need sound to understand body language. Brynn leaned in first. He smiled like he was used to being leaned into. His hand touched the small of her back, casual, practiced. They kissed. Not a drunk kiss. Not a sloppy mistake kiss. A familiar one. My hand stayed steady on the phone. That surprised me. I'd always assumed this moment would come with shaking or shouting or something dramatic. Instead, it felt like watching a video I'd already seen in a dream. The timestamp rolled forward. They broke apart. Brynn said something I couldn't hear and laughed. The man said something back and brushed her hair behind her ear like it was his job. Then they walked out of frame together. I replayed it once. Twice. On the third time, I noticed something small. Before they left, Brynn glanced straight up at the camera. She didn't flinch. She didn't freeze. She smiled. That was when it clicked that this wasn't just carelessness. This was confidence. I spent the day doing what I always did, running jobs, checking measurements, talking to guys who trusted me with their rent money and their backs. I nodded in the right places. I laughed when something was funny. I didn't tell anyone my life had cracked open before noon, but my brain was busy building a new map. That night, Brynn came home late, after 10. She smelled like that sharp soap again. She dropped her purse on the chair and sighed like the world had personally offended her. I might need some space, she said, not looking at me. Just temporarily. There it was, the train whistle. Okay, I said. What kind of space? She shrugged. I don't know, just space. Cool, I replied. You want space or do you want an exit? Her head snapped up. Why would you say that? I held her gaze, calm, curious. Because you've been packing sentences like that for weeks. Her eyes flicked to the door, to her purse, to her phone, calculating. You're being weird, she said finally. I don't feel safe when you get like this. That word landed heavier than the hotel key sleeve. Like what? I asked quietly. Intense, she said. Angry. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I nodded. Okay. She blinked. That wasn't the reaction she wanted. The next afternoon, I was in the garage fixing a loose hinge when I heard her voice through the open trunk of her car. Kelsey's voice answered, younger, nervous. No, not there, Brynn said. Here, you press like this, light pressure. It looks real, but it fades fast. What if it hurts? Kelsey asked. It's supposed to look like it hurts, Brynn replied, impatient now. Just don't overdo it, and don't cry until they ask you. I froze. My garage had an old audio recorder mounted near my workbench. I used it sometimes when tools went missing. Cheap insurance, nothing dramatic. I'd turned it on that morning out of habit while reorganizing. The red light was still on. Brynn laughed softly. God, you're so bad at this. Okay, listen. If they ask when it started, you say last month. That's important. Last month. Why? Because that's when people will believe it, Brynn said. Trust me. Their voices faded as the trunk shut. I stood there long after the car pulled away, staring at the wall like it might explain what kind of person I was engaged to. My phone buzzed. A text from Brynn. We need to talk. My parents are concerned about your temper. I looked at the recorder, then I pressed save. The Halsteads arrived the next evening, like they were responding to a silent alarm. 2 cars, doors slamming in sync. Brynn's father, Dale, walking up first with that squared shoulder confidence men get when they believe they're already in the right. Marian followed close behind him, lips pressed tight, eyes scanning the house like she was cataloging damage. Kelsey trailed last, hood up despite the mild weather, hands shoved deep into her pockets. Brynn stood between them, small on purpose. I opened the door before they knocked. "Cal," Marian said, voice trembling just enough to sound maternal instead of rehearsed, "we're here to take Brynn home." "Please do," I said, stepping aside. That stopped them. Dale frowned. "Excuse me?" "She's packed," I said calmly. "I'll grab her bag." Brynn's eyes widened, just for a second. Then she caught herself. "Dad," she said softly, "it's okay. I told them I just wanted my things." "Told who?" Dale snapped, already stepping into the living room. "You don't need to be afraid here." Afraid. That word again. They loved that word. It did half the work for them. "No one's afraid," I said. "Not tonight." Kelsey shifted. Her sleeve rode up a little. There it was, faint, purple-red, like someone had pressed too hard with their thumb. Marian gasped. "Oh my God!" Dale's jaw clenched. "You put your hands on her?" I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not panic, not anger, clarity. "I didn't," I said, "but I'm guessing you're about to call the police." Dale pulled his phone out immediately. "Already did." "Good," I replied. "That saves me a step." Brynn stared at me now, really stared, like she was trying to remember which version of me she'd practiced against. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "We can just leave." "You should," I said. But the truth staying. The police arrived fast. Small-town response times were good when drama involved people who knew how to complain. 2 officers, calm, neutral. They separated us automatically. Asked questions in voices that pretended they hadn't already decided which story sounded easier. Dale talked first, then Marian, then Brynn. I listened. She said I'd been controlling, that I'd raised my voice, that she'd been scared to leave, that she didn't know how else to protect herself. When it was my turn, I didn't argue. "I have a recording," I said. That got everyone's attention. "What kind of recording?" one officer asked. "Audio," I replied. "From my garage. It's my property. I use it for theft prevention." Brynn shook her head slowly. "He records me now too?" "No," I said. "Just you teaching your sister how to fake bruises." The room went quiet in a way that felt physical. I pulled my phone out, connected to the small speaker I used for job site meetings, and hit play. Brynn's voice filled the living room, clear, annoyed, confident. "No, not there. Here. Light pressure. It looks real, but it fades fast." Kelsey made a small sound, like air escaping. "If they ask when it started, say last month. That's important." Marian's face drained of color. Dale looked at Brynn. "What is this?" Brynn didn't answer. She couldn't. Her mouth opened, then closed again. For the first time since I'd known her, she had no script. The officers exchanged a look. "Ma'am," one of them said gently, "do you want to revise your statement?" Brynn swallowed. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp and full of something ugly. "You just made yourself my enemy," she whispered. I leaned closer, voice low enough only she could hear. "No, you tried to make me your victim." They left with her that night. Not in handcuffs, just escorted. A family suddenly unsure of who they were protecting. The house felt hollow after. Too quiet. Like it was waiting to see what I'd do next. I didn't sleep. I watched the doorbell footage again. The kiss, the smile, the confidence. The man's face was clear this time. Graham Voss, sponsor, partner. The kind of man whose name was always followed by words like community leader and visionary. I found him the next evening without trying. There was a walkthrough at the clinic site, open invite for vendors and sponsors. I showed up in my work jacket, hands still rough, like I belonged there. No one questioned it. That's the thing about places like that. If you walk in like you're supposed to be there, people let you. Graham was standing near the windows, talking with his hands. He looked exactly like he did on my doorbell camera. Relaxed, comfortable, untouchable. Until he saw me. Just a flicker. That's all. But I saw it. I waited until he stepped away from the group. "Graham," I said. He turned, smile already loaded. "Hey, Cal, right? Brynn's fiancée." "Was," I corrected. His smile tightened. "Rough time?" "You could say that." We stood there, the noise of the room washing around us. He leaned in slightly, like we were sharing a secret. "I don't know what she told you," he said. "But I know about the hotel," I cut in. That did it. His pupils dilated. Just a fraction. "Careful," he said quietly. "You're making assumptions." I smiled back. "Good. Keep smiling. You'll need it." I turned and walked away before he could say anything else. When I got to my truck later, there was a note under my wiper. "Drop it, or you'll regret it." Neat handwriting, rounded letters, Brynn's handwriting. I folded the paper once, slow and careful, and slid it into my pocket. Then I started planning. I didn't rush revenge. I mapped it. People think revenge is about explosions, screaming, fists, shattered glass. That's just noise. Real damage happens quietly, with timing. Real damage is when someone realizes they can't control the story anymore. I spent 2 days doing nothing that looked suspicious. I went to work. I fixed a cracked door frame on Maple. I argued with a supplier over warped studs. I ate a bad sandwich in my truck and let mustard drip onto the invoice like it mattered. At night, I planned. First lock, self-defense. Everything I did from here on out had to look calm, reasonable, proportional. I talked to a lawyer, not a shark, just a local guy with tired eyes and framed diplomas. I didn't say revenge. I said false allegation and protecting myself. He listened. He nodded. He told me what not to do. That was more valuable than what to do. Second lock, witnesses, not secrets. I wasn't going to sneak. I wasn't going to hack. I was going to let people see exactly what they needed to see and connect the dots themselves. That's when Tessa Rourke texted me. "She's not just cheating. She's rehearsing. Call me. Not here." We met at a diner off Route 9, the kind of place that served breakfast all day and smelled like old coffee and burnt toast. Neutral ground. Loud enough to swallow secrets. Tessa didn't waste time. "She practices," she said, stirring cream she never drank. "What she'll say, how she'll cry, where she'll stand so people see her hands shake." "About me," I said. Tessa nodded. "About you. She told me about the hotel bar, how Brynn and Graham didn't hide because they didn't think they had to, how Graham liked to talk when he drank, how he'd joked about handling complications. She said you wouldn't do anything," Tessa added, "that you were too decent." I smiled. That's the nicest insult I've ever gotten. Tessa slid a folded schedule across the table. Clinic launch, speaker order, sponsor remarks. "They moved Graham earlier," she said. "If you're planning something, don't wait." I wasn't. Third lock. Fear. Not violence. Fear. Graham needed to understand that his reputation, the thing he wrapped himself in like armor, was fragile, that it could crack without a single punch thrown. I chose a Thursday night. No events. No witnesses who mattered. Graham's car was parked outside a gym downtown, lights bright, cameras everywhere. Perfect. I didn't touch the car itself. Not really. No scratches, no damage, just inconvenience and dread. I zip-tied an envelope to his driver's side mirror. Inside, a printed transcript. 3 lines. Brynn's voice coaching her sister. Highlighted, clean, clinical. At the bottom, 1 sentence in my handwriting. Ask yourself what kind of woman practices lying. I also removed the valve caps from 2 tires and left them in the envelope. Nothing dangerous. Just enough to ruin his night and make him feel watched. I drove off before he came out. He didn't disappoint. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. "You think this is funny?" Graham hissed. "No," I said. "I think it's educational. You're crossing a line." "You crossed it first," I replied. "I'm just standing on it." He swore at me, threatened lawyers, threatened things he didn't quite dare say out loud. I let him talk. When he finally stopped, breathing hard, I said, "Tell Brynn to stop rehearsing." Silence. Then, very quietly, "She said you wouldn't." I hung up. The clinic launch night arrived dressed like a lie in a tuxedo. String lights, champagne flutes, people who smiled too much and listened too little. Brynn looked flawless. Graham looked confident. They didn't look at each other. Professionals never do. I stayed near the back, where exits were visible. Everything went according to plan, until it didn't. I was heading toward the open Q&A mic when my phone vibrated. A voicemail, from Brynn. Her voice was shaky, soft, perfect. "I'm scared of you," she said. "I don't know what you're capable of anymore." Then, in the background, faint but unmistakable, another voice cut in, lower, male, calm. "Say it slower," Graham murmured. "Let it break a little." The line went silent. I stared at my phone, the room blurring at the edges. That was when I realized something important. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was containment, and I wasn't going to stop it. I lifted my head. The sponsor had just taken the mic, and it was finally my turn. The sponsor finished his speech to polite applause, the kind people give when they're already checking their phones. Brynn stood beside him, hands clasped, chin lifted, every inch the future she'd practiced. "Before we open the floor," the sponsor said, smiling toward me, "I want to thank Cal Mercer. He handled the facility work on short notice. Without him, this place wouldn't have passed inspection." A few heads turned. Brynn's smile didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. She hadn't known that part was coming. I stepped forward. The mic was warm in my hand, real, heavy. "Thanks," I said. "I'll be quick." I didn't look at Brynn. I didn't look at Graham. I looked at the crowd, the donors, the partners, the people who loved clean stories and hated risk. "I was asked recently why an engagement ended so suddenly," I continued. "The answer going around is that I was unsafe." A ripple moved through the room, small, curious. "I don't argue with feelings," I said. "But facts matter, especially when they're practiced." Brynn took one step toward me, smile still glued on. "Cal," I raised my phone, not threatening, just visible. "This is a short audio clip," I said. "Recorded on my property. If anyone wants the full file, it's available to the police." I pressed play. Brynn's voice came through the speakers, clear as glass. "Light pressure. It looks real, but it fades fast." A few gasps. Someone dropped a glass. "If they ask when it started, say last month." The room went completely quiet. Not shock quiet. Processing quiet. I stopped the audio. "That's not cheating," I said calmly. "That's rehearsal." Brynn lunged for the mic, smiling wide for the crowd, whispering through her teeth, "If you do this, I will destroy you." I leaned in just enough to whisper back, "You already tried." She turned to the crowd, tears loading on cue. "He's manipulating." I didn't raise my voice. I raised my phone again. "This voicemail came in tonight," I said. "You can hear who's directing." I played 10 seconds. That's all it took. "Say it slower," Graham's voice murmured through the speakers. "Let it break a little." Someone laughed, not kindly. Graham moved fast then. Too fast. He grabbed for my phone, missed, and momentum carried him into a stack of folded chairs. Metal clattered. Security surged. "Don't touch him," The sponsor snapped, already backing away from Graham like a man realizing the ice under him was thin. Brynn screamed my name. Cameras were up now, phones everywhere. Her parents stood frozen near the bar, Marion's mouth open, Dale staring at Graham like he'd just learned a new language and hated it. Security wedged between us. Graham shouted about defamation, about lies, about lawsuits. I didn't answer. I stepped back and held my phone out to the nearest officer who'd arrived with the noise. "Full files," I said. "Property recordings. Witness statements. I'm done speaking." The sponsor leaned into his mic, voice tight. "We're ending the event." The lights stayed bright. No dramatic blackout. Just the sudden, brutal end of a performance. As people surged toward the exits, Brynn broke free and rushed me, mascara finally streaking, voice cracking for real this time. "You ruined everything." I met her eyes, calm, finished. "No," I said. "I stopped you." Graham was being held near the doors, arguing with security, his tie crooked, his name already being typed into phones with words like allegation and coaching and recording attached. He saw me and went still. I walked past him, close enough to speak without raising my voice. "Check your mirror," I said, "everywhere you go." Then I pushed through the doors into the cold, the noise behind me folding in on itself, and didn't look back. The wind cut hard as I crossed the parking lot, lights flashing behind glass, voices breaking into smaller, panicked pieces. Somewhere inside, my name was still being said like a weapon. Somewhere else, theirs was already becoming a warning. My phone vibrated once. I didn't check it. I got in my truck, shut the door, and drove away while the building behind me stayed lit, bright, exposed, and finally telling the truth.